Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this chapter is entitled as Description of the Kingdom of God. So we are seeing verse after verse the description of Vaikuntha Loka, the description of Kingdom of the Lord. Earlier in the other verses we saw some of the very specific characteristics of Vaikuntha Loka which are not found in this material world. Like the name itself, Vaikuntha, Prabhupada explains that all the inhabitants in the Vaikuntha Loka, they are completely free from all kinds of anxieties. In the material world, we saw that how every living entity is filled with anxieties always. There is no freedom from material anxiety. So, this is the characteristic of Kuntha or material world, and opposite to that is Vaikuntha, which is completely free from all anxieties. What is the reason? We also saw Prabhupada explain the reason why material world is filled with anxiety and why spiritual world is free from all anxieties. Material world, everything is temporary. It is not Shashwat. We are eternal. We are Sanatan. So when we come in temporary material world, we are filled with anxiety because that is not our real nature. Our real nature is permanent, Sanatan. So spiritual world, everything is permanent. There is no birth, old age, disease, death, which are the cause of anxieties. So everything is permanent. So there is no anxiety in the spiritual world. Then we also saw that in the material world, everybody is busy for sense gratification. People are working hard for sense gratification. In the spiritual world, there is only one occupation. So, dharmena aradhayan harim. The only occupation in the spiritual world is to worship the Supreme Lord, to carry out devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And what is the quality of that worshipping the Supreme Lord? Because in the material world also, there is worship. But even when we are worshipping the Supreme Lord, sometimes it is mixed with jnana, sometimes it is mixed with karma. So, jnana mishrit bhakti or karma mishrit bhakti. We perform devotional service which is not uncontaminated, which is not pure, which is mixed with jnana and karma. But in the spiritual world, it is only the pure devotional service which is practiced. There is nothing like jnana mishrit bhakti, karma mishrit bhakti, doesn't occur in the spiritual world. So even though devotional service is practiced in the material world, it is sometimes mixed with jnana and karma. It is having some contamination. It is not pure. Pure bhakti is practiced in the spiritual world. In the material world also we can practice pure bhakti, just like the inhabitants of Vaikuntha Loka, the spiritual world, are practicing. If we become freed from the contamination of jnana and karma. So that Rupa Goswami describes. We learnt about that. What is that sloka? Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavritam Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam Bhakti Uttamam. So that is considered to be the topmost devotional service. And we also saw that to perform something, there is always a hetu, there is always a cause. So that is there in the spiritual world also. In the material world, the cause is our own sense gratification. Any activities we are doing, it is the reason behind that, the cause behind that, what motivates us to do different activities, that hetu is sense gratification. In the spiritual world, it is, what is the motivation of performing any activities in the spiritual world? Pleasure of the Supreme Lord. To give pleasure to the Supreme Lord. So that is the motivation in the spiritual world. So, ye animitta nimittena. Animitta means without sense gratification. Nimittena means caused. Their devotional service is not caused by sense gratification. Devotional service is caused by pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Here, in today's verse, another very important quality of the devotional service is described. That even if there is opportunity in the spiritual world to gratify our senses, the devotee is not attracted. Of course, Prabhupada explains, in spiritual world there is no question of sense gratification. But even if there is a situation, just like the example is given here about that when the inhabitants of Vaikuntha Loka, they are flying in their airplanes with their consorts, and sometimes what happens, the Madhavi flower, which is laden with fragrance and honey. Here in the material world, when the flower, when there is a wind, we only get the fragrance. You don't get honey, isn't it? Honey is made separately by the honey bees, and then we extract honey. That is how we get. But here you can see in the spiritual world, the Madhavi flower is there, and when there is a breeze, the cool breeze is blowing, it not only carries the fragrance of that flower, it also carries honey. So it says, Antarjale anuvikshan, inside the jala, when the blossoming flower is there, which flower? Madhavi Naam. So Madhavi flower, which is laden with madhu, which is laden with honey. Gandhena, and when the breeze carries the fragrance of this flower, which is filled with madhu, Khandita dhiyo api anilam. Anilam means the breeze. When it carries such a fragrant, laden with honey, this kind of breeze, Khandita dhiyo shipantaha. Their dhiya, their intelligence is never diverted. Their consciousness is never diverted to even this fragrant flower. They are so busy in glorifying the Lord. When they are glorifying the Lord, even though there is an opportunity that they can smell Madhavi flower, which is very fragrant, they derive even that. See? So this is the quality of devotional service in the spiritual world. Not only it is pure, but even if there is an opportunity that they can satisfy their own senses, they derive that because they are overwhelmed in glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The pleasure they derive in glorifying the Supreme Lord, that pleasure derives any other pleasure even in the spiritual world. So that is explained very beautifully here. So Prabhupada is saying in the purport some very important points which we will try to understand. Prabhupada explains that actually in the material world and in the spiritual world, if we see the difference, the material world, it is just one partial opulence of the Lord. Correct? After describing the whole of Vishwarupa, the whole cosmic manifestation, we see in the 11th chapter the universal form of the Lord, which contains everything of this material world, whatever we can see. And the Lord describes, I am the taste in the water, I am the sunshine, I am the moonshine, I am the fragrance of the flower, right? So everything the Lord describes. And then He says that what is the need of all this description? Because what is this? This is nothing but just one fragmental portion of my glory. What is manifested in the material world is just a fragmental glory of the Lord. So the opulence, what we see, by which we are so mad, isn't it? We have become mada, we have become maddened. It is nothing but just fragmental glory of the Lord. So you can just imagine how much we can become mad after the real glories of the Lord, which are found in the spiritual world. See? We become maddened by people. Sometimes we see they become so mad by beauty of some woman that sometimes they create a huge big palace for them after that loving person has gone from this world. We see the example of Taj Mahal was created in the memory of what was the name? Mumtaz. Isn't it? So you can just imagine how much a person can become maddened by just fragmental glories of the Lord. In this material world, what we see is just fragment of that. So Prabhupada is saying, from this verse one can understand Vaikuntha Loka is filled with all opulences. We see that from the very definition of the Supreme Lord as given by Parashara Muni. Right? What is the definition? Anyone remembers? Aishwarasya samagrasya. Samagrasya means complete. The Supreme Lord is complete in all opulence. Similarly, the abode of the Lord is complete in all opulence. So, some of the examples of those opulences are given, just like in the last class we were reading from one portion where Prabhupada is saying, in the spiritual world, there is no requirement of jet fuel for flying the airplane, which makes so much cumbersome sound, isn't it? So here we can see that it appears from this verse that Vaikuntha planets are full of all opulences. There are airplanes in which the inhabitants travel in the spiritual sky with their sweethearts. And in the material world, people all, travel. We all travel for either for our own pleasure, right? That is how we travel, or we travel for some kind of work. Day and night you can see people going from, different parts, from different airports, people are flying to different places. For what? Either they are going for some family trips, to enjoy some holidays, or they are going for some business. That is how people are traveling. But in the spiritual world, even when they're traveling with their own wives, with their own consorts, with their own family, when we travel with our own family, we go for a pleasure trip, we want to enjoy, isn't it, along with our family. But here we find, even though they're traveling with their own consorts, sweethearts, everything, it is all for glorifying the Supreme Lord. There is no so-called pleasure trip in the spiritual world. The pleasure trip is also meant for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. The trip is meant for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Why are they traveling? It is described here. You can see here. Vaimanikaha salalanas. Vaimanikaha means in their airplanes, salalanas, along with their consorts or along with their wives when they are traveling in their vimanas. What are they doing? Charitani shashvat gayanti. They're always, shashvat means not for some moment and then they're enjoying their sense gratification and again they become engaged in glorifying the Lord. No, it is shashvat. Always they're engaged in glorifying the charitani, activities and character of the Supreme Lord. And what are those, what is the activities and the character of the Supreme Lord? What it is described is very beautiful. It is Shamala Shapanani Bhartuhu. Bhartu means the Supreme Lord. His charitani, his activities and the character of the Supreme Lord, they are filled with all auspicious qualities. There is nothing inauspicious in the qualities of the Lord. We always have some good qualities and we can always find something which is stinking in us, isn't it? We can always find something which is not good about us. This is the character of the material world. If we want to describe somebody's qualities, always there will be some good qualities, there will be some bad qualities. But there is nothing inauspicious about the Supreme Lord. Nothing. Even when the Lord, even when He descends in the material world, there is nothing inauspicious. In the spiritual world, there is no fighting. But when the Lord descends in the material world and fights also, there is nothing inauspicious. When the Lord killed so many demoniac people, even that is not inauspicious. When we are singing the glories, when we are glorifying the Lord, Madhusudana, when we are saying Arisudana, the Lord is the killer of his enemies, the Lord killed Madhu demon, even that is filled with auspiciousness. So that is the characteristic of the Lord. There is nothing inauspicious about the Supreme Lord. So, Shamala Shapanani Bhartuhu. And then Prabhupada describes about that characteristic of that devotional service which we saw. Dharmena Aradhyan Harim. They are always engaged. Their only occupation is to glorify the Lord. Their only occupation is to render service to the Lord. What kind of service are they rendering? What is the quality of that service? Are they desiring something out of that? That I am serving you, my dear Lord, so you give me something back. They are not desiring anything. So what kind of service are they rendering is very beautifully described. That even if there is opportunity to gratify their senses, they are never attracted to gratifying their senses. The overwhelming desire to satisfy the Lord is so great that even such kind of, where there is opportunity available for them to gratify their own senses, they will not go for that. In the material world we can see, even though we are engaged, sometimes we are engaged very seriously, but sometimes when there is good opportunity, we all become diverted. But that never happens in the spiritual world. That never happens in the pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord. That is what it is described here. So Prabhupada is saying, there is a breeze carrying the fragrance of blossoming flower, and this breeze is so nice that it carries the honey of the flower. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha, however, are so interested in glorifying the Lord, they do not like the disturbance of such nice breeze while they are chanting the Lord's glories. Actually, they don't see it as distraction, they see it as disturbance. There is no question of getting distracted. They actually see it as a disturbance. They consider glorification of the Lord more important than their own sense gratification. In Vaikuntha planet, there is no question of sense gratification. To smell the fragrance of a blossoming flower is certainly very nice, but it is simply for sense gratification. Correct? It may be very nice to appreciate certain things, to appreciate the smell of the flower, to appreciate some good food, to appreciate nature, isn't it? But until and unless it is connected to the Supreme Lord, actually it is sense gratification. That is what we should understand. Everything can be appreciated in connection with the Lord. Then it is not sense gratification. Then it is devotional service. So even in the material world, actually, we should practice this. This is a good opportunity. In the spiritual world, it is ideal. This ideal principle. That actually nothing is considered more important than the Supreme Lord, glories of the Supreme Lord. In the material world, we consider certain things. So those certain things we should try to dovetail in the service of the Lord. That is the training we should all have. Suppose we have some very good, appreciation for nature. Let us say, for example, we appreciate some sceneries, we appreciate some beautiful plants or beautiful flowers we appreciate. But until and unless we understand that the flower is meant for glorification of the Lord, the material nature is actually meant to be engaged in the service of the Lord, it will be only sense gratification. So Prabhupada says, just like eating is not stopped in devotional service. You are attracted to eating rasgulla, you are attracted to eating gulab jamun. But don't appreciate that thinking that I will enjoy it. You should appreciate by offering it to the Lord. And then, even when we are partaking prasadam, it is not meant for enjoying prasadam. That also we should understand. It is meant for honoring prasadam. This is a training. You see? So this is a training. That even though we like to enjoy, the tendency of enjoyment has to be changed. So that Krishna explains very nicely in 6th chapter in Bhagavad Gita. How to engage all our activities in the service of the Lord. In the material world, we all understand that activities have to be carried out, right? So this is a very beautiful, we will try to understand this. In the spiritual world, everything is spontaneously meant for service of the Lord. There is no question that a devotee will think about his sense gratification. Moment, because of his free will, the devotee thinks about gratifying his own senses, what happens? He is no more in the spiritual world. He becomes a resident of the material world. So that means in spiritual world there is no question of sense gratification. Free will is there. That we should understand. Because without free will, there is no question of love. Love comes when there is a free will. Just imagine if our children are there, you force them to do something. That is not, you cannot force somebody to love you. It is out of the free will of the person. Love means there is free will. That is what one should understand. So in the spiritual world, there is no sense gratification. The moment that thought comes in the mind of the living entity that he wants to enjoy independent of the Lord, he comes into this material world. Now let us say we have come to the material world. Spiritual world, it is spontaneous devotional service to the Lord. What is the causing factor of our serving the Lord there? Pleasure of the Lord, correct? When we come to the material world, we have come with the desire of gratifying our senses. So what becomes the factor of our activities here? Gratifying our own senses. Kama hetu. There it is prema hetu. It is out of love of the Supreme Lord we act. In the material world, we act out of our own desire for sense gratification. Now, what is this? This is a disease. Now what happens when we become diseased? Some people become very, very frustrated with the disease. And they think everything is null and void. It's all nonsense. This material existence, this existence itself is nonsense. So they come to the conclusion of void, or they come to the conclusion of impersonalism. You see? But Krishna is not saying that. Krishna is saying disease is there, but Krishna is giving the formula how to cure that disease. To cure the disease, you don't have to give up your activities altogether. That is what the impersonalists do. They give up the activities altogether. Krishna is explaining activities cannot be given up. Even in the spiritual world, it cannot be given up. Because that is the nature of the spirit soul. Nature of the spirit soul is to be conscious, and consciousness is expressed through activities. So there is no possibility of giving up the activities. Activities have to be purified. In the material world, we have to train our activities. That is what it is required. All our activities should be trained. How we have to train, we will try to see. That Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter. Of course, many other places Krishna explains, but a very beautiful description is given in 6th chapter. What should be our motive in the material world when we are doing activities? Spiritual world, it is spontaneous. It is attraction for Krishna. Automatically. That attraction towards Krishna makes us to do activities for Krishna. In the material world, that is not possible, at least in the beginning. You see, in the beginning it is not, we don't have that attraction for Krishna. If that attraction comes, then automatically we will only act for Krishna, His pleasure. In the middle, we will not act for our own pleasure. That means it is not, that spontaneous attraction for Krishna has not yet aroused. So how to arise that Krishna says in 6th chapter. He explains how activities should be done. So Krishna says, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha. So, without taking shelter of karma phalam, karyam karma karoti yaha, one who does his activity just as an obligation, just as a part of matter of duty. You see, this is how Krishna is explaining. In the beginning, this is. Later on, it is meant for the pleasure of the Lord. That phalam, first of all, we don't have to get pushed by that phalam. This phalam I am going to get, so I will do this activity. Krishna is saying, Anashrita, don't take shelter. Ashrita means taking shelter. Material world, everybody is taking shelter of fruits to do some activity. Krishna is saying, Anashritam, don't take shelter of that. So, Anashritam karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na cha akriyaha. Not, Krishna is saying, who is a real sannyasi? Of course, there are sannyas, ashram is there, where we have to wear a dress of a sannyasi, we take the danda of a sannyasi, all that is there. But actually, what is a real sannyasi? It is not just in the dress. The dress is required for, some kind of conduct, social conduct. But otherwise, sannyasi is not because of the dress. Sannyasi is because of the spirit of his renunciation. What has he renounced? He has renounced the fruit of his activities. So Krishna is saying, sa sannyasi, that person is actually a sannyasi, and that person is a yogi. Yogicha. Not that person who does not light a fire. Means, lighting a fire means actually for satisfying our belly, we have to do some activity, correct? We have to light a fire, we have to, make some food for us, we require food, we require some shelter, all those things are required. So Krishna is saying sannyasi is not one who has given up all these activities of eating, all these things. That is not a sannyasi. Sannyasi is one who has given up the result of his activities. That is a sannyasi. Then, in the next verse, Krishna explains further. Yam sannyasam iti prahur yogam tam vidhi pandavaha nahi asanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschanaha. What is called renunciation is the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. For no one can become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So this is a training. See, in the spiritual world, there is no sense gratification, correct? There is only pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Here the Lord is training. Don't get attached to that fruit, because when you get attached to that fruit, it is meant for your sense gratification. So you, anashrita, don't take shelter of the fruit. Then one may think, then what to do? Renounce it. So what do I do with that fruit? Fruit is going to come. Whatever activity you are going to do, fruit is going to come. So that fruit is meant for somebody else's pleasure. That is the training we should understand. That fruit is meant for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So this training, we have to train ourselves. So Krishna is saying here, one cannot become a yogi, one cannot become a sannyasi if he does not renounce the desire for sense gratification. So gradually we have to learn this art, that whatever activities we are doing, we don't try to enjoy that fruit. That fruit should be offered in the service of the Lord. So actually all of us in Krishna consciousness, we also get a lot of opportunity to practice this. So we should not get swayed by the fruits of our activities. Whatever activities we are going to do, it will bring us physical fruits, and it will also bring us a lot of fruits which are not gross. It will bring us name, it will bring us fame. Let us say, somebody is a very good book distributor, somebody is a very good singer, somebody is a very good lecturer, somebody is very good in management, isn't it? And he is creating a lot of profit. And somebody is very good in collection. All the different kinds of fruits it is going to bring. So gross fruit also we can become attached, and then we can also become attached to the subtle fruits out of that. So we have to renounce, we have to understand that gradually we should renounce all these things. Our ideal should be the great devotees of the Lord. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also teaching that actually na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. No followers. I am not trying for all these things. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching. How to become a devotee of the Lord. We have to deny all those things. And then in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the greatest example of, just like we are seeing here in the Vaikuntha, even in the material world we can see the example of the gopis who practiced this uncontaminated, pure devotional service, so much so that the Lord Himself appeared in the material world as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to practice the bhava of the gopis, to taste what they were tasting. You see? So very beautiful verse is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I will just read that. Then we will end. Atma sukha dukkhe gopira nahika vichara. Atma sukha dukkhe. Their own sukha and dukkha, gopis are not bothered about. We are very much bothered about our own sukha and dukkha. Especially at least dukkha come, we are very much bothered. Isn't it? So much difficulties come in our life, even in devotees' life. Specifically, we find more difficulties coming in devotees' life only. Isn't it? So here we are seeing the gopis, they never bothered of Atma Sukha or Dukkha. Then, what is their vichara then? If they are not bothered about their Sukha and Dukkha, Krishna Sukha Hetu Cheshta Mano Vyavara. For the pleasure of Krishna, Krishna Sukha Hetu, for the pleasure of Krishna, what do they do? Cheshta. All kind of activities, all kind of mano, whether the activities of physical activities or mental activities, thinking, feeling, willing, anything they do, it is for Krishna Sukha Hetu, Cheshta Mano Vyavara. And then, in the next verse, Chaitanya Charitamrita describes, Krishna lagi ar sab kare parityaga. What is the exalted quality of the gopis? Krishna lagi ar, for the sake of Krishna, sab kare parityaga. They are ready to give up everything. Sab kare parityaga. Krishna sukha hetu kare shuddha anuraga. And for Krishna sukha hetu kare shuddha anuraga. Their giving pleasure to Krishna is not out of duty. It is not out of some pressure. Oh, I should worship Krishna. 15-20 minutes I have to sing glories of Krishna. I have to dance for Krishna. I have to sing for Krishna. 2 hours I have to chant for Krishna. We are all doing out of rules and regulation. Out of that I have to do it. Because I have given promise to the spiritual master. That also sometimes we don't follow. Out of that also we don't follow. Isn't it? But gopis are not doing out of any kind of vidhi, out of some rules, out of some regulation, to get some fruit out of that. None of these are their consideration. What is their consideration? Shuddha anuraga. Their pure attachment to Krishna. That is what is the hetu. That is what forces them to serve Krishna. So, this is the Vaikuntha world, this is the spiritual world, and this is greatest of that example was shown by these gopis, and following in the footsteps of the gopis were the 6 Goswamis. They have given us the path how to follow in the footsteps of the gopis and gradually attain to that pure devotional service of the Lord. We'll stop with this. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.